Welcome to today's episode of me reviewing highlights. I do this every weekday, almost every weekday, where I review 10 random highlights from different books that I have read. So let's start with the highlights today straight away. The first one is from Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's a novel, pretty nice one. I think this is the last fiction I've read. I need to pick up more fiction books. Anyway, back to this. You back to work, you take advantage of the quiet time that a failure allows you. You remind yourself that no one is paying any attention to you, and it's a perfect time for you to sit down in front of your computer and make another game. You try again, you fail better. So, I'm thinking that this was. I'm forgetting the names of all the characters right now. Yeah, but there is this very elite gamer, game developer, and he's mentoring the protagonist in the story, one of the protagonists in the story. There are two three arguably, and this person who's saying this is the mentor to one of them, and she's kind of dealing with failure and everything, and this person who is like an elite game developer, all his games are a success, that kind of thing, says this. And I think what appeals to me is, just the fact of trying again and failing better, that attitude, that that your next attempt is also probably going to be a failure, but it's a better failure. You learn a higher quality lesson from the next failure, and you keep doing that until you succeed. And the with the perspective that that success also carries, some small failures along its way, because I suppose, to all of us, in a way, success doesn't tell us much. We don't learn much from success at all. We gain very little information from success. Failure, it's packed with learnings. And that is why it's always the failure that's much more valuable along the road to where we can say that, okay, oh, this is, we have completed this journey. And maybe we can never say that, that we have completed this journey. We keep failing better, we keep learning better, and that's where we find our satisfaction. Moving on. That's long. Okay, this is from Getting Things Done. Many people think they've determined the next action when they get it down to set meeting, but that's not the next action because it's not descriptive of physical behavior. How do you set a meeting? Well, it could be with a phone call or an email, but to whom? Decide. If you don't decide now, you would still have to decide at some other point, and what this process is designed to do is actually get you to finish the thinking exercise about this item. If you haven't identified the next physical action required to kickstart it, there will be a psychological gap every time you think about it, even vaguely. You'll tend to resist noticing it, which leads to procrastination. So it's a rather long point, but I've highlighted it because it captures the philosophy of getting things done. And that's somewhere over here. The process is designed to do actually to get you to finish the thinking exercise about one item. So when you pick up an item from your in tray, and there is this whole concept of, like, first of all, capturing everything, collecting everything that's in your in tray, putting it over there, and now you start the process of processing it. That's like, there is a flow chart, there is a kind of a workflow over here where you decide that, okay, is this actionable or not actionable? If it's not actionable, what is it? Is it a reference? Is it like maybe someday you'll need it? Is it trash? It could be trash as well, right? Are you going to throw it away? Or if it's actionable, is it something that you can do in 2 minutes? There's a whole framework over there. There's a nice diagram as well. But the point is that, like this highlight says, the process is designed to get you to finish the thinking exercise. So each item that you pick up from the in tray, you think about it. And the point this is making is that set meeting is not an action. Rather, how do you set a meeting? Who do you talk to? Have you, like, for example, for me, it would be placing it on the calendar, talking to the people, figuring out a time, placing it on the calendar, or placing it on the calendar and then deciding that, okay, are they okay with the timings? So that's the action over here. And maybe this action takes less than 2 minutes. If I'm, for example, if I'm just going to set a book a slot on the calendar, it takes less than 2 minutes. I'm just going to do it straight away. So that's the action that we need to document, not set meeting. And that's what this is. This highlight is all about. Thinking of what's the next action item, like physical action item that you need to carry out to call it done, and writing that down in your to-do list, not just set meeting. Because again, like, if you see that, if you're processing your to-do list on a daily basis and you see set meeting, that is still quite vague. So you're going to go a little further during your initial exercise itself, that okay, set meeting with so and so in so and so format. You decide all of that upfront. So yeah, rather long point, but let's move on. Again, another long one. 7.5 lessons about the brain. Artwork, particularly abstract art, is made possible because the human brain constructs what it experiences. When you view a cubist painting by Picasso and see recognizable human figures, that happens only because you have memories of human figures that help your brain make sense of the abstract elements. The painter Marcel Duchamp once said that an artist does only 50% of the work in creating art. The remaining 50% is in the viewer's brain. Some artists and philosophers call the second half the beholder's share. I think I have nothing to add over here. It's a uh, very informative thing. And yeah, nothing to add over here. So moving on. Factfulness. Great knowledge can interfere with an expert's ability to see what actually works. All these solutions are great for solving some problem, but none of them will solve all problems. It is better to look at the world in lots of different ways. This book is a whole. It's a very interesting book. How we are going to look at problems, how we're going to uh, break down the situation that you see and think about it from different perspectives. So a lot of different examples about, for example, poverty, or things that we see nowadays commonly. That we get the feeling that world is getting worse and worse day by day. But if you look at it from a different way, world is actually much better off than, like, let's say 100 years back. So yeah, that's the point over here. Great knowledge can interfere with an expert's ability with what actually works. So if you feel that you know too much today, you can actually be too tunnel visioned into this, and this is what it tells me, that sometimes the range of different skills that you have are more valuable than being going deep into one particular skill and just staying over there, getting too tunnel vision in one particular domain only. So yeah, moving on. Get it done. In close relationships, people focus on how much we, that is the team, get in total rather than who gets more. They'll choose to get more, but also less, as long as the bottom line is more for the group. I think it's straightforward, but I'm not really sure of the context over here. Like, what is the flip side of this, for example? So I'll skip it. Next is range. Oh, I just mentioned range right now. And I was actually referring to this book. Short term rehearsal gave purely short term benefits. Struggling to hold on to information and then recall it had helped the group distracted by math problems transfer the information from short term to long term memory. The group with more and more immediate rehearsal opportunity recalled nearly nothing on the pop quiz. Repetition, it turned out, was less important than struggle. So it's a very complicated way of putting it. The idea, what it says really is that, uh, like, if you try to learn something and if you're tested on that immediately, you'll probably do well. But because it was so easy, that test was so easy, because you've just learned it, it is easy to succeed at the test. But because that was so easy, when you have a pop quiz much later, you're going to do terrible at it. And that's just how our brains work, So people who had, like, for example, there were many different scenarios over here. In one scenario, they even tested, giving a test to people of subjects that they had not even learned yet, but they still had to try and solve it. They have not even learned the concept yet. So, like, the first try to solve it, and then they learned about the concept. And that also gave much better results than short-term rehearsal, like this highlight says. So the key thing that kept coming back, again and again over here, was the concept of struggle. That is, if you struggle to remember, that's where your brain starts remembering. And this is like, of course, this book talks about it a bit, but there is a lot more in other books that I have read. For example, a mind for numbers that goes into like this is one of the learning trick over there that's written in the book in that mind for numbers. It's about like interleaving. So how you're going to start different topics, how you're going to learn different topics. Like for example, one of them is you start with the hard problem when you're giving a test, so that it's in the background of your mind. Like there is this conventional advice that when working on a test, uh, answer all the easy ones first because you can get that out of the way. But what works better is answering the hard ones first, attempting to answer the hard ones first, and then moving on after a minute or two. But what the brain does is it still keeps working on it in the background, and that's what happens over here also. When you struggle, the brain is still working on it, and when it actually gets the information, it remembers it better. So yeah, let's move on. The earned life. I think it's a day of long highlights. Earning ends when we accomplish what we set out to do, or when changing circumstances in the world or in ourselves make it unnecessary to continue what we have been doing. Earning begins when we decide we need to recreate our life, making it our own even if it's someone else's idea, in order to redefine who we are. In between the beginning and the end, we must let go of many things: our role, our identity, our allegiance to the past, our expectations, and then scratch and claw to find our next new thing. This is how we earn each new beginning in our life. We must close the door on one part of our life and open a new door. This is pretty much a summary of one of the themes of the book, really earning, and when does it begin, when does it end, and what goes through us when we are when we are struggling to earn whatever we have set out to do. It could be our identity as a leader. It could be our identity as uh, like good parent, for example. So whenever we decide to create a new life, recreate our life, that's when our earning begins. That's when the process begins, and that's when we start giving up on the past. Who was I in the self? Sorry, who was I in the past to adopt a better future, the future that we are envisioning at the particular time. So I don't think I can do this justice because it's deep, and there's not enough time for me to cover the whole book that way. So yeah, let's go on. Again, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Why won't you tell someone you love them? Once you loved someone, you repeated it until they were tired of hearing it. You said it until it ceased to have meaning. Why not? Of course, you goddamn did. So, I think I'm forgetting where, again, the context, like I said, I'm forgetting the character's name and everything. Um, but yeah, I have a vague memory of who this refers to. But like the highlight itself is quite poignant. It's once you loved someone, you repeated it until they were tired of hearing it. Why not? You know, you said it until it ceased to have meaning. Why not? It's a very nice one. So I have moving on for 4,000 weeks. And even if you do end up getting the full 3 hours precisely in line with your expectations, you won't know this for sure until the point at which those 3 hours have passed into history. You only ever get to feel certain about the future once it's already turned into the past. So it's a kind of a paradoxical thing, and this was a realization when I read this book. So it actually begins with saying that when we say that we have some time, we actually don't have it. We only think that we will have it. So like the example goes over here, that you may think that, okay, I have 3 hours to do this, for example, but you don't really have 3 hours. Like there was a other highlight, I think it came up a few days back, that it's not, you don't have it in the sense of you have money in your wallet, for example, or you own a position. It's not, you don't have 3 hours in that manner. When you say you have 3 hours, it's really like that you think you have 3 hours in the future. You really can't count on it. It's not there with you. And anything can happen in that time. And like this highlight says, even if you do end up getting the full 3 hours that you thought that you would, and you actually do get it, you won't know it until it's actually in the past. So it's a very funny thing, when you say that you have time, you actually don't have it at all. And that's the point of this highlight. Of course, the realization is much deeper. It's about, when we say that we have time, we don't actually have it. Why are we such a stickler for saving time? We never possess time in the first place. So, well, I'm not going to go deep. That's the whole subject of the book again. But yeah, that's the on a very superficial level. This is the concept that our understanding of time is flawed. When we talk about utilizing every minute of our time, every hour of our time for maximum productivity, maximum efficiency, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. Like we just discussed getting things done earlier in this highlight, but there is a point where you have to take life as it comes at you, and that's what this book is about. So it's a balance, like it's you can never play at the extremes, right? When we need to live a balanced life, and we talked about earned life in that sense. So I'm guessing this is like, today's episode is filled with long highlights, but it's also filled with like balancing highlights. Anyway, let's move on. Kill it with fire. The number one killer of big efforts is not technical failure, it's loss of momentum. To be successful on those long term re-architecting challenges, the team needs to establish a feedback loop that continuously builds on and promotes their track record of successes. So, I think it says this perfectly. The loss of momentum is the number one killer of big efforts, because big efforts take time, it takes months, years, and it's very, very easy to lose motivation in the period. So it's not technical failure, but the loss of momentum. So of course, the loss of momentum can happen because of technical failure. That may be the cause, but really the where it all starts breaking down is the loss of momentum. Technical failure in itself doesn't cause it. For example, if you recover quickly from the technical failure, nothing wrong with that. But once you lose momentum, the morale goes down. It's kind of like a feedback loop, so once you lose that initial momentum, you lose morale, and because you have lost morale, you're going to further lose momentum, and that's going to like go into a vicious cycle. So we need to establish a feedback loop that continuously builds on and promotes the track record of success. So having small victories along the way, very, very important. The middle, in fact, like get it done, we reviewed, like that book also came up in one of the highlights today. But that's there, like the tyranny of the middle. It's mentioned in the book that the we find a lot of motivation in the beginning and the end of the task, but not so much in the middle is the hardest part of a task, not the beginning or the end. Beginning is like as challenging as it is still easier compared to the middle. So the suggestion over there in that book in Get It Done is to avoid long middles. Over here, it is to promote the track record of successes. And in a way, success is a sense of, like in a sense, success is a closure of a task, right? You usually feel successful when something ends or something is closing out. So, what this also says, in other words, is have closures throughout the process. So, you're continuously closing something and beginning something. That's how you can feel successful on something, right? If in middle, how are you going to feel successful in the middle of something? Only when it ends, right? So when you're going to have a when you want to have a track record of success, you need to have track record of a track of closures in between, which means that again, like I think both of these books are coming to the same thing, that keep the middles very, very small, because that's where we lose all the motivation. And that's really at the end of it. Again, almost 19 minutes. So I'm not going to talk more about this. Well, you have a good day. Have a good weekend. Bye.